superiority. You know, we've so trashed that word that we forget that there are morally superior beings on Earth.
Yeah.
And those individuals are going to be beset by those who see that light, you know, and they want to plug into it. And I find that people on the spiritual path, one of the reasons why a lot of them give up is because they get surrounded by these kinds of individuals, or they already have that kind of adversarial energy in their life and they don't know how to deal with it or cleanse from it. So this is a big question. You know, we have a blog. You know, people can go to my blog and see comments from people. We're working on this Vampirism project, and it's just a fascinating subject for those who are interested in that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. You know, and it's just so cool how this has already started this morning, because it's exactly the thing I wanted to start off with this morning. I want to read a little paragraph that you have on your site, because it's just awesome, and it's about psychic vampirism. The man who has murdered his own self becomes a predator who lives to consume what others create. The self-murdered person is the greatest threat in the world, and is both violent and destructive toward himself and to everyone he encounters. He can occupy positions of little importance or of the greatest importance. He can destroy a single life or that of a world. He cares nothing for the trail of destruction and ruin that he leaves, only for the satiation of his insatiable appetite. He seeks you and all that is yours. Wow, that is just pretty heavy. And
did I write that? I must have forgotten. Yeah, that is heavy.
But, you know, it's so true. And what is exactly psychic vampire, and how do we recognize them?
Well, it's impossible to say. It's not one thing. It's not one thing. And one of the reasons why I've taken so long, because I've studied this subject all my life and have been very, very hesitant, George, to even do anything about printing this or, you know, writing about it or doing a DVD. With all the other work that I've done, you know, that the road to a book or the road to a DVD, you know, has been pretty obvious. It's just, of course, taken the hard work to do it. But, you know, it's been quite easy to say, okay, this would make a good program that other people are interested in. With the psychic vampirism thing, I've had to be very cautious because, you see, it's one of those subjects that can easily be manipulated in various ways. And it's because of the ambiguity of what you're talking about. And let me explain exactly what I mean by this so that, you know, because we'll make radio history here because it's the first time I've ever mentioned this or said it. If you don't present this information correctly, then the wrong kind of people can get off the hook because of their deeds.
Yes.
In other words, there's a penchant within all human beings for denial, for copping out, you know, and not facing who they are. So if you don't present a subject like psychic vampirism correctly, and people go around thinking, oh, well, all my problems are caused by X, well, then, you know, you caused a lot of problems because you just fed somebody with the whole accusation model to be running around saying, oh, but that person's a psychic vampire. Oh, I bought a book on a spinner rack, you know, in Kinko's or wherever, and it told me all about these energy vampires. So I've noticed that, you know, in the past, with certain websites and certain books on this subject, this is what they kind of are, maybe consciously or unconsciously. They create this little, you know, cliche in which people can live by saying, well, see, I can't do anything. It's impossible for me to get what I want or do what I want or be a good person because, you see, there's all these people around sucking my energy. So I got to be very careful, you see, that I don't provide yet another denial mechanism for individuals.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is actually a bona fide philosophy of energy vampirism, and it's been in the world for a long, long time. The Bible talks about it. Ancient religions talk about it. The myths and legends certainly talk about it, and it is a phenomenon that is occurring in our society, very close to home sometimes, and therefore, you know, I feel like it needs to be known to the world. But at the same time, the last thing that I want to provide for people is this whole other denial mechanism to get them off the hook of responsibility, because this world is just itching to get off responsibility, and, you know, responsibility as itself is a huge psychological crisis in our world.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a certain responsibility I feel then for bringing this forward, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it very deliberately and, you know, working out the right format for it, the right way to deliver this information so that it doesn't get as misused, you know, by people, and if it is, then you catch them on it and go, wait a minute, that's not what this person's talking about. You know, they're not talking about you, you know, being in a state of irresponsibility.
And not only that, it also puts you out there for the feeders.
True, but, you know, people like me are out there no matter what. A lot of my experiences, you know, the people that I've talked to who've had this happen to them, you know, I think it's. Let me answer the original question is, what is it? You know, how do you observe it? To give people a basic idea of what it is that, you see, the human being is a person who choice to make in their life about whether they motivate by their own energy or by the energy of somebody else. You know, it's like Shakespeare has said, you know, like monsters from the deep, the human beings prey upon one another. You know, the Christ in the Gospel of Thomas, in the Bible, they've all spoken about it. And we have to diagnose it because there is this pernicious thing going on. It's just that we have not, you know, sharpened our intuition to notice that it's going on. There's no meter, no electronic gadget that you can pull out and say, oh, look, this person is, you know, taking my life force or taking my energy. And because that scientific device does not exist, psychic vampires are there able to basically flourish because it's very, very hard to accuse them. It's like I was saying in the Origins of Evil talk and in the Future of Mankind talk, that unfortunately there is no police that you can go to, and there's no judge that you can go to, and there's no court that you can go to when psychic violence is being done to you. In fact, you may not even know that it's being done.
Yeah.
You know, child who's grown up, say, in an abusive, you know, family where the parents are completely violating that child's rights and are even physically or, you know, in any other way abusing that child. You see, that child doesn't know any other reality. And it might grow up thinking that a lot of that is completely normal and then even go on to repeat the behavior because it's literally not understood in its mind that that is completely off the wall, abnormal behavior that doesn't go on elsewhere. So there's a critical issue where we're not even educated, George. We're not even aware of some of the violence that we, you know, do to others.
Yeah.
Now, the most important thing, though, is the violence that we do to ourselves, which is, you know, can be called masochism or sadism to the self. There is a whole form of unseen emotional violence, psychic violence, that is done in the human race, and a great deal of it is done from one person to the other. This is what chiefly interests me. But then I started to notice that there is a lot of this emotional violence that goes on, and because it is, you know, if you kill somebody, you know, you will be hunted, you will be caught, and you will be accountable, and you may spend the rest of your life in jail.
Right.
But yet, we do infinitely, can you imagine, infinitely worse crimes to people. We destroy their emotions. We can actually try to murder their soul. There's actually, this goes on in life. More than we'd want to even imagine. We basically, you know, drop atom bombs on people's emotions. We conspire to do things that, you know, suck their energy and drive them mad and take away their hope and all of these psychic things. And yet the human race is not even aware that this is violence. It just takes it for granted because, again, you know, our eyes have not been opened. So to me, it's absolutely critical that human beings start to open their ideas to this kind of psychic tyranny, this kind of sadism to the self, and then from that move on to understand more about the kind of violence that we perpetrate on people, which may not be illegal in the, you know, quote-unquote sense of the word, the obvious sense of the word. It's not going to happen overnight. This is you know, I'm hoping to kickstart this information, this knowledge, so that, you know, the human race does start to get savvy about this, because physical violence, criminal violence, is not the only kind of violence that's going on in this world.
That's for sure. To me, what it's all about is the awareness of self, and through that, all these things can become known to us. If you don't believe that somebody can hurt you psychically, can they?
They can hurt you whether you believe it or not.
Exactly. Oh,
they can hurt you even if you are aware of it.
Yeah.
I have heard of cases in which people who are in the spiritual community and who know how to cleanse themselves, I mean very deeply, you know, who know how to change their energy, cleanse themselves, they're still under attack. Maybe not as bad, you know, but I mean, how can you avoid it? It's like somebody going out into the streets and walking downtown and expecting that you're not going to inhale the fumes, you know, or get the dust on you. What we've got to understand is this is a natural phenomena. As long as people are in the kind of pathetic, inauthentic, and, you know, low chakra state that they're in, full of envy, and envy is different than jealousy, full of anger, full of repressed, you know, content, you better believe that you're going to be walking in a sea of their energy out there. So just like we know that there's weather, and you have to protect against the weather, the human race needs to learn what are the keys, what are the ways of you know, finding out about this. I said earlier that it's difficult to identify one, and all I meant by